Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to your sleep story. I am Teresa Noy, your radical self-love coach. I work with high-achieving women who typically put themselves last to love themselves enough to put themselves first. You deserve to love, cherish, and honor yourself without guilt because your well-being matters. It gives me great joy to be the voice that guides you into a restful sleep tonight. You are so deeply loved. Your existence is the proof. Before we begin tonight's sleep story, let's start with a relaxation session. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support beneath you, the support of your bed, the floor, and the earth beneath. Imagine the warm sand of a beautiful beach cradling you, holding you with the earth's gentle strength. Allow that certainty, that solidity to enable you to release a little more, to sink into this moment a bit more. 9. You are safe. All is well. Allow my voice to be a point of safety for you. Allow my voice to be an anchor that keeps you in a safe space. Know that my voice will only ever bring you into safe places. Feel into your body now. Notice where you might be holding tension. Maybe your feet, your hands, your face, or your belly. Just release it all. Your body has worked hard for you today. It's time for it to rest. It deserves rest. 8. Today is done. Whatever has been, has been. Whatever will be, will be. All you have is now. So thoughts about the day that just was, or days that are to come, don't serve you right now. Allow that realization to enable you to settle into this moment more. 7. This is your moment. You have nowhere to be, nowhere to go. The only place you need to be is here, enjoying this cozy sleep story and the sound of my voice. You deserve it. 6. You deserve it. You deserve rest. You deserve sleep. You deserve to be here. Allow that fact to help you let go a little more. 5. Perhaps allow yourself to feel a little gratitude now. Gratitude for this moment. Gratitude for the ability to rest. Gratitude for the simple things. Your breath, the shelter you have tonight, the opportunity to switch off in a place of safety. 4. Embrace the coziness of this moment, the coziness of lying down in a safe space, moving towards sleep in the beautiful act of storytelling. 3. Begin to engage with your imagine now. Engage with your imagination. Picture a beach in the Caribbean, a secluded spot on the beautiful island of Barbados, isolated from the rest of the world, or another favorite spot that you may have. Allow yourself to engage. Bring that picture to mind and check in with your body again. Make sure you're not holding tension anywhere. Release and allow yourself to sink a little deeper. 2, completely let go now as I tell you tonight's sleep story. The time-stopping spa. She arrived just as the sky began to turn that soft, dusky rose. The kind of pink that feels like a hush falling over the world. There was no rush to check in, no clipboard waiting, no forms to fill out. Only a gentle breeze met her, laced with the faintest trace of lavender and something ancient, like warm cedar and the memory of rain. The pathway was cobbled with smooth stones that kissed the soles of her feet as if they had been waiting for her all this time. She didn't know how she found this place exactly. It had shown up on a page she wasn't looking for, in the middle of a day, packed with meetings and responsibilities. And something about the name had whispered to her, the time-stopping spa. Not a flashy ad, not even a full description. Just those 4 words, resting on the screen like an exhale. And she had clicked. Now standing beneath an arch of trailing vines and cream-colored blossoms, she felt a strange kind of stillness settle into her chest. Not the kind of stillness that meant something was missing. The kind that meant nothing was expected. Not now. She stepped forward, and the world seemed to soften around her. Inside, the walls were curved and smooth, made of golden clay and sunlight. The air smelled of bergamot and eucalyptus, like the first breath after a long cry. Gentle, warm light poured from scones, shaped like open palms, and each step seemed to carry her deeply into something sacred, as if she were walking into the slow heart of the earth itself. The receptionist didn't speak. She simply nodded, eyes kind and knowing, as if to say, yes, this is exactly where you belong. No intake forms, no ID, no pressure to articulate what kind of service she wanted, just presence. A long white robe was handed to her. It was soft, like the underside of a petal, and smelled faintly of rosemary. When she slid it on, she noticed something odd. Time didn't feel normal here. The minutes didn't tick. They stretched, slowed, melted like raw honey sliding from a spoon. She hadn't realized how loud her mind had been until it started to quiet. In the dressing room, she found no mirrors, just a low bench, a pair of sandals, and a crystal bowl filled with warm water and lemon slices. She dipped her hands in, and it felt like a release, as if the deadlines that had gripped her shoulders all week were slipping off and sliding away into the water. When she stepped out again, the hallway before her had changed, not in layout, but in tone. The air shimmered with the hum of peace, a sound without melody, but with meaning. Her skin prickled gently, not from cold, but recognition. This place had been waiting for her. Perhaps not this exact location, but the feeling of it, the invitation to be. There were many doors down the corridor, each one marked not by number but by scent. The first, a waft of sweet orange. The second, pine and frankincense. The third, her favorite, jasmine with a trace of something deep like amber warmed by skin. She paused there, placed her hand on the door. It opened without a sound. Inside, there was a room bathed in golden steam. The walls sparkled with tiny droplets that caught the light like dew on spider silk. A pool of warm, glistening water stretched before her, still as glass. There was no sound but the low, steady pulse of her own breath syncing with the rhythm of the space. She stepped in, and in that moment, as the water curled around her like silk unraveling, she thought not of work or tasks or expectations, but of the simplest desire. I wonder what it feels like to completely let go. And the spa, in its quiet wisdom, answered not in words, but in warmth and stillness and time that did not move. Just breath, just presence, just the beginning of being held. The water remembers. The water cradled her, not like a bath, not like a pool, but like something older, wiser, like being held in the hands of the earth itself. It wasn't just warm, it was aware. A kind of sacred warmth that seeped through her skin and whispered to the bones underneath, "You can rest now." She floated effortlessly, as if the water already knew her shape, her weight, her weariness, and had made room for it. There was no need to swim, no need to do anything really. It was the first time in ages that she didn't feel the invisible pull of gravity on her to-do list. Above her, soft lanterns pulsed gently, like they were breathing with her. Their glow wasn't electric, but golden and slow, like the last light of summer or the memory of a dream. The ceiling above them curved like the sky of a small planet where nothing bad had ever happened. As she drifted, she realized something she hadn't admitted to herself in a long time. She was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that builds quietly behind the eyes and beneath the ribs. The kind that makes everything feel like a deadline. And yet, here, in this water, the fatigue didn't feel like something to push through. It felt like something sacred, something seen. The surface rippled gently as she moved an arm, and she noticed that the steam rose in patterns, soft spirals and curves that looked like cursive, letters being written in the air. She imagined the water writing her a love letter with each ripple, spelling out what she'd forgotten to believe. You are not here to prove yourself. You are here to be yourself. And that is more than enough. For the first time in what felt like months, she sighed from her belly, not from her brain. A delicate sound echoed in the room. Not music exactly, but the gentle chime of wind bells, like time itself had loosened its grip and decided to play. It moved through her, through the air like a lullaby that didn't need words. And the strangest thing happened. She stopped measuring. She didn't care how long she'd been in the water, didn't wonder what came next. The familiar hum of urgency had been rinsed clean. She imagined herself melting like sugar into the water, not disappearing, becoming sweeter. The walls of the room glowed a little brighter now, as if rewarding her for the surrender. She noticed tiny flecks in the tile, golden threads woven into the surface like constellations beneath the waterline. She reached out and traced one with her finger, and it pulsed gently beneath her touch, like the spot itself was alive, listening, responding. And then, as if on cue, the door she had entered through gently opened again. Not wide, just enough. A warm mist billowed in, carrying the scent of neroli and warm honey. She sat up slowly, the water cascading off her arms like silk ribbons. She wasn't sure how long she'd been floating, but something inside her had stretched, softened, recalibrated. The kind of shift that doesn't announce itself, but is felt deeply, unmistakably, like the way a body knows when it's finally safe. On the ledge beside the pool, a white linen towel waited, and beside it, a small ceramic cup filled with something steaming and floral. Chamomile? Rose? Something else she couldn't name, but it smelled like comfort. She stepped out of the pool, and the air didn't chill her. It met her like a gentle embrace. She wrapped the towel around her, lifted the cup, and took a sip. It tasted like warmth and memory, like being held without being asked to perform. She smiled for no reason, and that was enough. As she turned to follow the hallway of scent once more, she noticed a new door had opened in the distance, just slightly. This one carried the scent of sandalwood and orange blossom. She didn't need to know what was inside. She followed the scent, because here, time wasn't chasing her. It was holding space for her to return to herself. The room of still hands. She stepped lightly into the next space, where the light shifted again, this time soft and golden, like early morning sunlight filtered through sheer linen curtains. It didn't feel like a room. It felt like a pause in the day made physical, like a gentle hush had taken form and wrapped itself around everything. This was the room of still hands. That was the name that floated across her mind, unspoken but certain. Here, touch was a language. The walls were painted in a blush tone, like the underside of a seashell. In the center, a wide cushioned table waited, draped in ivory linens that looked like they had been smoothed 1,000 times with love. A quiet woman entered, her eyes like quiet water, her hands folded loosely at her sides. She said nothing. There was no need. The woman gestured, and the high-achieving guest, this woman, who had carried so much, climbed onto the table. It wasn't like any massage she'd had before. There were no deep neds, no quick strokes, no rushed movements trying to undo a lifetime of tension in 60 minutes. This was different. The hands that touched her were reverent, slow, impossibly gentle. It was not a massage, it was a ritual. Every movement asked a silent question. May I help you let go of this too? And with each touch, something old and overused inside her softened. The drive to manage, to plan, to prove, quietly uncoiled from her muscles like smoke leaving a fire that no longer needed to burn. As the woman's hands moved across her back, her shoulders, her feet, she felt herself remembered. Like her body had been carrying a map of who she truly was, but it had been folded and tucked into her back pocket for too long. Now, with each stroke, the map was slowly being unfolded. Her breath slowed, her jaw unclenched. Her mind, which usually pinged from one task to the next, like a hummingbird in a glass box, began to rest on each thought like a cat curling up in a sunbeam. She could hear the sound of oil being warmed in a nearby bowl, and then the scent of sandalwood filled the air again, deep, grounding, ancient. As it was smoothed along the sides of her neck, she felt like a piece of fine wood being lovingly polished, revealed, not altered. She found herself remembering small things she had forgotten mattered. The way her mother used to braid her hair when she was little. The way her child once looked up at her with sticky fingers and eyes full of trust. The feeling of walking barefoot on warm grass just after it rained. Tiny joys, once buried under performance, now returned to her gift wrapped in silence. The woman's hands moved over her heart, pausing there, not pressing, just resting, listening. And in that pause, she felt something sacred stir. Not ambition, not inspiration, but tenderness. The quiet knowing that this moment matters too. Not because it was productive, but because it was peaceful, because she existed in it. When the session ended, there was no bell, no abrupt goodbye, only the sense that something inside her had been seen. The woman smiled once, placed a warm stone in her hand, and left. It was smooth and flat, the color of a twilight sky. As she held it, she noticed the tiniest engraving on the underside. Just one word: return. She didn't need to know what it meant yet. That was the beauty of this place. There was no pressure to figure things out, no urgency to turn peace into insight, no rush to name the transformation. Just the slow unfolding of her own becoming. She stood, wrapped herself in her robe again, and stepped back into the corridor. The next scent rose to greet her like a promise. It smelled of lemongrass and something sweet, almost like time, if time could bloom. The Garden of Unfinished Thoughts. The hallway curved gently as if inviting her deeper, not into the building, but into herself. The scent of lemongrass had grown richer, mingled now with something more playful, maybe peppermint or the hint of citrus zest. Whatever it smelled like curiosity. She followed the fragrance until it led her to a new room. But this time, there was no door, just a sheer veil of mist swaying gently in the archway, like a breath suspended in midair. She stepped through it without hesitation, and the coolness kissed her cheeks in greeting. The room opened into a garden, not wild, not manicured, something in between. A deliberate looseness, the kind of place that didn't need to impress to be beautiful. Moss-covered stones lined the paths, and oversized blooms nodded lazily in the soft light. There was a low hum in the air, like bees, like wind through reeds, like daydreams barely spoken aloud. It felt like walking into the pages of a book she used to love but forgot she owned. In the center of the garden, nestled under the gentle arms of a willow tree, sat a small round table with one chair. On the table, a glass teapot, steaming with pale green liquid, and a tiny notebook bound in cream-colored leather. A fountain nearby burbled softly, the water dancing over smooth pebbles as if telling secrets to the soil. She sat instinctively. There was no one else in sight, just the garden, the silence, the teapot, the blank notebook, and her. She poured herself a cup. The tea tasted like clarity, not the bold kind that stirs action, but the quiet kind that lets you hear yourself again. She opened the notebook. The pages weren't blank at all. Each one had a sentence started, but never finished. I wonder what would happen if I finally let myself. I don't say it often, but I'm proud that when I stop rushing, I notice that I feel. If my body could speak to me, I would whisper. I don't need to fix it, I just need to. One after another. Each one an invitation, not a demand. She felt no pressure to answer them, just to listen. To sit with them the way she might sit beside a close friend who didn't need fixing, only presence. The questions floated around her like petals on a breeze, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't need to know. She didn't need to solve. She didn't need to finish. She just breathed. The garden seemed to exhale with her. A butterfly landed on the edge of her cup, and for a moment she sat still, together with the butterfly. She laughed quietly at the elegance of it all, the permission in it, the softness. Somewhere deep inside, she realized this was the part of her that never rushed, the part that didn't hustle for validation, the part that didn't measure her worth by what she produced. This was the part that just was, whole, rested, rooted. She traced a finger along one of the unfinished sentences and smiled. Maybe the beauty was in the not knowing. Maybe this was the place where all the overthinking drained away, and what remained was presence, peace, the simple joy of pausing in the middle of a sentence and knowing I'm still enough, even now. As the tea cooled and the garden bathed in the late afternoon light, she stretched her legs and stood slowly. There was no sense of time here, but her body felt full in a new way, not overstuffed, but deeply nourished. She glanced back once just to imprint the garden in her memory, then turned toward the next opening in the wall of vines. A new scent awaited her, warm vanilla and soft almond. It smelled like comfort, like dessert after a long day, like permission to enjoy. The room where nothing was missing. She followed the trail of warm vanilla and almond into a softly lit room that felt somehow like the inside of a lullaby. Pillows were everywhere, plush and cloud-colored, stacked and scattered in gentle disarray across low beds and thick rugs. The walls were the shade of cream, stirred with sunlight, and from above, soft music floated down like golden dust, not from speakers, but as if the very air had learned how to hum. Here there were no oils, no waters, no teas, only stillness, only softness, only a space designed for one sacred thing, to receive. She didn't lie down right away. She simply stood at the edge of the room, robe trailing gently behind her, and breathed in the scent. It reminded her of her grandmother's kitchen, of birthdays and baking, of warm hands passing fresh cookies across a table filled with laughter. The air here felt thick with kindness, as if the molecules themselves carried memory. She walked slowly to one of the large low cushions and curled into it without hesitation. The fabric was like velvet made from cream. It cradled her body as though it had memorized her shape long before she arrived. No one asked anything of her. There was no guided meditation, no goal, no script to follow, just rest. A kind of rest that doesn't wait until you've earned it. A rest that arrives like an old friend, arms open, saying, "You've done enough. You are enough. Let me hold you for a while." Her eyes grew heavy, not from exhaustion, but from relief. She hadn't realized how long she'd been carrying the weight of proving herself, not in loud, obvious ways, but in the quiet ways high achievers often do, checking, fixing, managing, giving, performing, staying 3 steps ahead of every potential need. And here, she didn't have to do any of it, not even for herself. The silence wrapped itself around her like a lullaby written in touch. She let her head sink into a pillow and watched the light dance on the ceiling. It moved like candlelight underwater. Every flicker slowed her pulse, soothed her breath. The space felt enchanted, not magical in a fairy tale way, but magical in the finally I can let go way. Then something curious happened. She began to notice the edges of her own self, The parts that usually blurred together in her rush to be everything to everyone began to clarify, not in a loud, ego-filled way, but gently, like someone brushing sand from a stone to reveal its natural curve. She remembered how good it felt just to be, to laugh at something silly, to walk aimlessly, to daydream, to taste something delicious without rushing on to the next bite. Here, those moments weren't distractions. They were everything. She let her body fully melt into the cushions, not because she had to, but because it felt like choosing herself. The music faded into the background. Her thoughts quieted, then paused, like birds landing on branches instead of flapping endlessly through her mind. Nothing was missing here. There was no inner checklist scanning for the next thing. No sense of what am I forgetting? Just presence, just pleasure, just this rich, unhurried moment. And in that moment, she realized something that felt like a truth she'd always known, but rarely lived. Peace doesn't come from getting everything done. It comes from giving yourself permission to be undone, to be soft, to be whole in your becoming. Eventually, a new scent began to drift in, earthy, grounding, and green, like herbs crushed between fingertips, like the promise of a return to the world, but gentler. She sat up slowly, stretched like a cat who had nothing to prove, and moved toward the final path. There was no rush, only invitation. The return to now. The final corridor felt like a gentle descent, like walking down into a memory or up into a dream. The scent that followed her was fresh and grounding. Basil, sage, a whisper of lemon verbena. It cleared her head in the most loving way, like fresh air after a rainstorm. The floor here was different. Smooth, warm wood that responded softly under each step as if it too was listening. The light was dappled, filtered through hanging leaves from above. She had no idea if this was still inside the building or if she had somehow stepped into the edge of a forest. It didn't matter. Here, definitions dissolved. She walked until she reached that final room. It was circular and open, with floor-to-ceiling windows looking out onto a quiet stretch of a meadow. The grass waved slowly, hypnotically, as if it too had no deadlines, no pressure, just rhythm. In the center of the room sat a round platform, layered with soft mats and low cushions. A glass dome hovered overhead, catching sunlight and casting gentle prisms across the floor. There was no furniture, no schedule, no sound, but the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional bird song, sweet and sporadic, like a lullaby forgotten halfway through. She sat cross-legged, folding into herself, robe loose around her body like a whisper. In front of her was a single object, a small hourglass. But unlike the kind used to mark time, this one had no sand, just air and a soft glow that pulsed slowly and steady from the base. A breath, a reminder. Time is not sleeping away. You are. She placed her hands on her knees and let the message settle into her bones, not as a warning, but as an invitation, a return of remembering. She thought of the woman she was when she arrived, tightly wound, subtly clenched, walking with invisible armor shaped like accomplishment. And now she felt porous, open, not emptied, but cleared, not erased, but revealed. There was no sudden insight, no light bulb moment, just a softness that had been waiting beneath the layers of striving. She had not become someone new. She had returned to someone true. She lay back on the cushion, face toward the sky dome, and let her hands rest on her belly. Her breath moved like a lullaby sung from within, no longer tight, no longer trying. Here, in the room of return, everything slowed until it felt like the entire world had taken a deep breath and decided not to exhale just yet. She imagined her calendar still waiting for her out there in the other world. But now it felt less like a cage and more like a garden she could tend, selectively, lovingly, intentionally. The thought didn't tighten her chest. It opened it. She knew she would leave this spa soon, but she also knew not everything was meant to stay behind. Some of this peace would come with her in the way she would move slower through her mornings, in the way she would say yes only when her soul whispered it too, in the way she would stop reaching for worth and start resting in it. Outside the window, a butterfly floated past, its wings the color of dusk. It paused at the glass as if to bless her departure, a silent benediction. She stood, wrapped herself once more in her robe, and walked to the exit. A door she hadn't noticed opened to the side. There, waiting on a hook, was her coat, the same one she wore in, but now it felt lighter in her hands, or perhaps she was lighter. Before stepping out, she turned back once more, not from longing, from gratitude. And then, with a quiet smile and a rested heart, she walked out into the world again. Not changed, returned, still her, but softer, and finally, in no rush.
Thank you.